Hi everyone, this is Ali John Chaudhary, psychotherapist, and today I'm here with Fern Chapman, author of the book Brothers, Sisters, Strangers. And today we're going to be addressing a very important question. Why is it that we include estrangees and the estrangers in our community? I think that's a very important question that needs to be addressed. What do you think, Fern?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting issue that has arisen on the page. Some estrangees resent that estrangers are also contributing to your caring, sharing, coping page and wonder why you include both. So I think this will be a great opportunity for us to discuss that. I think we probably need to start by defining those roles. And actually, because I have reconciled with my only brother, I have been in both those roles to some extent. So I hope we'll have an opportunity to explore that.
Absolutely. And I think this is really good that you mentioned that because there are similarities when you become the estranger in some cases. Absolutely. Let's get into some of the definitions. I think that's good. And one of the things I find especially is, yeah, like really who belongs here in our community, and how is it that we can include both estrangers and estranged people in our community? So basically, we'll attempt to answer some of that today. Let's get to some of the definitions. Being estranged means when a person chooses to distance themselves with us, or from us rather, or without a clear explanation. So I think that's really important to realize when that happens, because oftentimes this type of marginalization can be used as a weapon against us. And oftentimes we're left feeling hurt, shocked or dismayed, resentful of the other person. And especially after this type of experience, we become more sensitive to the rejection in other relationships.
Yeah, I think what you're defining is an estrangee, because when we talk broadly about the estranged, both groups are estranged, but the estrangee is often in the dark and feels deeply rejected. And they carry that and often ruminate about it. Whereas the estranger is taking action. Now, often they say they're taking action to protect themselves. So there are two very different groups and reasons for the estrangement.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. And I think you really nailed it there by saying that it's basically a necessity to maintain one's sanity and out of the need for protection. So, yeah, it can involve stepping back, establishing healthy boundaries when you become the estranger. That can also be the option that someone chooses when they've been burned, especially in family settings, or that they've gotten the sense that their boundaries have been typically crossed. So that is something that people choose to have for themselves to protect themselves, essentially, as a means of security, for sure.
You hear that in a lot of cases of mental illness, when a sibling is mentally ill, when a sibling is violent, when somebody is repeatedly injured by the sibling. Yes, it is protective and necessary. And I think it's really important to emphasize that, because often people estrange, in other words, they are the estranger, and they get blamed, and they are looked at as cold-hearted and mean-spirited because they don't want to sustain this relationship. In fact, if there's violence, you have to protect yourself.
I completely agree. I think that that's really important to have those healthy boundaries put up, and that you should prioritize your level of security. And, the types of situations that involve estranging, are usually security based. It's usually because you've gotten to the point where you got fed up, basically, and decided it's time for me to do something so that way this doesn't happen to me over and over again. So I think that that's important, but I do want to emphasize also that, regardless of which camp people see themselves in, there is a sense of loss of a sibling relationship. And I think that it's the idea that you can't really express your potential of a healthy relationship because of the circumstances being what they are.
That's a really interesting point, Ali John, because I have interviewed those who are estranged as an estranger or an estrangee, and both of them say they ruminate.
Yeah, exactly.
So that tells you that this is not an easy choice. And many think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done this, and maybe there's still hope. And they ruminate on that if they're the estranger.
Yeah.
The estrangee ruminates on, what did I do? How can I fix this?
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. There's second guessing with regards to when you've estranged somebody. Did I do the right thing? You're coming from a position of a power base because you've exercised a choice that's voluntary versus an involuntary choice, right? With regards to estrangement or being estranged. So there can be examples of euphoric recall. Was it really that bad? You know, did I push it too far by pushing them away from my life? So, you know, both are characterized by guilt, you know, and it's really important to recognize that as humans, we're problem solvers. This is a natural skill that we have, right? So the mind is looking for an answer and basically trying to find meaning to the experience. So, you know, there can be various emotions that foster various types of rumination as well, if we're not careful.
Well, and I think what's unique and important to recognize about any estrangement is there are a lot of pressures. There's a lot of shame and guilt. Family often intervenes and says, you must get along. There are a lot of societal expectations that you should rely upon your family for support, and we should try to aspire to have close relationships with family. And that's just not always the case.
Well,
Now,
that's it.
I think this is a good moment for us to reflect a little bit about why you include both estrangers and estrangees on your page. And I think there's a very important reason.
Well, yes, I think that's the thing, is that both are characterized by loss. And I don't pertain to one particular position more than another. I think there's a danger in thinking that if you've been estranged from your family, that there must be a reason for that. And I strongly disagree with that. I think that there can be very irrational reasons why someone would push someone away. There can be misunderstandings, there can be many different things. Like there can be legitimate reasons that are very clear, you know, in terms of blatant behaviors that are unacceptable. So, yeah.
I think too that it's important that these are individual choices, and you don't need somebody else's stamp of approval to decide you need to protect yourself. This is something you do for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And sometimes the lines aren't necessarily always very clear.
No.
Sometimes you may be the one doing the estranging as well. Like, for example, if an estranged sibling basically reaches out at your birthday, sends you a text message or a birthday card, says happy birthday, well, do you necessarily want to respond in some cases? So some people will choose not to respond because they haven't heard from them all year long. So you become a bit of an estranger when you choose not to do that voluntarily, because you don't want to foster the sense that everything's okay when it's really not.
So I think there is great value in including estrangers and estrangees on your page. And the reason for it is we can learn from each other. We can begin to understand better why somebody makes choices to estrange, if they are the estranger, and how it feels for the estrangee who carries this hurt with them all the time. And I think that's the great value of having both parties on the page.
I absolutely agree. I think that that's really important to be able to learn from each other, but also to recognize that we can also be both in some circumstances, and that in the end, it comes down to the loss of relationship. It's the idea that there's an unexpressed, unfulfilled relationship, and that we have to learn to find meaning with that. And we may discuss that a little bit more in the next episode with regards to grief and loss, perhaps, you know. But I think we're almost out of time.
It's great to always be with you. And I think this is a really important distinction, but also there's great value in hearing from both sides. So I will continue to read the page
and see the comments from both estrangers and estrangees.
Absolutely. And I think that's very important that people, of course, do connect to our Facebook page, Sibling Estrangement, Sharing, Coping, Connecting. There's a thriving community there. People are having conversations about sibling estrangement. They're uplifting and empowering themselves. Very important to do that. Of course, there is your website also that talks about estrangement and the different things, different projects you have going. Of course, there is the Sibling Estrangement online support group on Zoom that we have. That's very important as well. This is a twice monthly group that people can participate in to meet people of like mind and, of course, interact and exchange and empower themselves in real time. So there's that. There's siblingestrangement.com with informative articles on the topic of sibling estrangement, of course. And, of course, there is a Psychology Today blog that you write, Fern, that has very informative articles as well with regards to sibling estrangement, and that is coming out in the mainstream, which is great news.
Thank you. Well, it's been a lot of fun to pair up with you and spread the word on sibling estrangement.
Absolutely.
And how to empower yourself, most importantly.
Very much so, yes. So thank you so much for doing this, Fern. It's wonderful to have you here. Of course, there's your book, Brothers, Sisters, Strangers, also Sibling Estrangement and the Road to Reconciliation, which is a powerful book on what that can look like, and also to empower those going through estrangement as well. I very much encourage our viewers to take a look at that. So once more, thank you for doing this, Fern, and I look forward to our next conversation very soon.
Me too, and we're going to keep them short.
For sure. All right, you take care, Fern.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.